It's kind of an unusual seminar because we're going from carbon to grazing management. Tomorrow we'll be down in Yellowstone Park, so we're going to be talking about bison. Some of the key points I'm hearing from everybody is we need to get stuff to regrow. We need reclamation. But like in Matt's talk, if we don't do management, our reclamation is going to be a waste of time. If we try to reclaim something and then we just destroy it, what's the point? So a little different lens I want to look through is trying to use soil biology as an accelerant. A lot of people have talked about that. A lot of people don't fully understand it. I think a lot of the thing is that we don't really understand exactly how a plant gets its food and how biology, the role that biology plays in a plant that's growing. I'm sure some of you guys have seen this before. This is a diagram of the soil food web. It was done by Dr. Elaine Ingham. She was kind of the godmother of the soil food web originally. We know what photosynthesis does. With regenerative land solutions, what we're trying to do is trying to key in on restoring health and the soil biology on the second trophic level for the plant, and that would be the fungi and the bacteria. So quite simply, if you look at how does a plant get its nutrients in nature, okay, photosynthesis first. Then when it decides it needs something beyond that, in order to get it in a natural way, it's going to secrete some sugars out there, and these fungi and bacteria basically are little miners. They're out there taking like the different macro and micro elements, they're putting them into their body. The plant can then attract them into the rhizosphere, and once they come into the rhizosphere, the plant still can't get it. So then what has to happen, and then we have the protozoa, the amoebas, the flagellates, and ciliates. When they consume those, that creates perfect plant available nutrients for our plants. What disrupts this? Well, a lot of things disrupt it. If we overgraze, if we farm, natural disasters can do it. Chemicals can do it. Heavy-handed synthetic fertilizers. If we throw heavy-handed, like too much nitrogen, for example, will cause the plant to say, wow, I'm getting all of these this free stuff, I'm not going to associate with that microbial community, so pretty soon they're going to go, I'll just shut off the supply to those guys and quit using them. Well, what happens then is those guys don't just lay down and die, they'll start eating the carbon out of our soil. So if we can look at our grazing systems with this kind of in the forefront of our mind, we can't manage it completely, but we can also mitigate damage as we go. I like this slide here. There's some controversy whether this, when it comes to soil biology, we're still learning. If anyone thinks we've got it dialed in, we're just at the cusp of learning this stuff. But I do see this in nature. I see the succession ladder as a function of fungal-bacterial ratios. Well, an example in nature is you have a mudslide, you have a volcano. The first plants to come in are going to be early successional plants. When we farm and we do a lot of tillage and stuff, what are weeds? Weeds are early successional plants. They're trying to cover the ground, like Matt was saying. What we have found, and I think it's kind of neat, is so if we want to reclaim stuff, if we have bare soil and we're down working in a bacterially dominated system, when we actually want to be up there in a late successional grasses and a more balanced system, how can we speed that process up that's not going to take decades to get us to do that? So what we believe that we can do is if we inoculate the soil and feed that hypha fungi, we can speed that process up immensely. And I'm going to show you guys some examples of that because we're going down into the park tomorrow. When Matt's talk was saying about the blue bunch wheatgrass, the short lifespan of the seed in the ground, how long it takes to germinate, what if we can reduce germination rates? And I'm pretty sure we can. I did some trials this summer. I inoculated the soil. I did some measurements. I think the biology can make the conditions more conducive to germination. There's not a lot of replicated science out on that, but there's a lot of anecdotal stuff, and I'm pretty convinced, because if we can go from here to here in one season, I mean, that's huge. That's huge for fixing problems that we've created and problems that come from catastrophes. Why not try the improbable? The feds came and put a couple bridges in the county on our road there, and I tried to help them manage the project. I found places to throw the spoils and stuff. So this was a hole on my neighbor's. They brought all this fill in from under the county road. It was just gravel. They bulldozed it in, plowed it over. That neighbor kept saying, "Man, can you fill that hole?" Well, they did a beautiful job of filling the hole, but they filled it right to the top, so I couldn't put any dirt on it. So basically, I've got a county road that I've got to reclaim from my neighbor. And I'm thinking, well, perhaps I'm going to have to peel some of that back, bring some stuff in. This is looking straight down on it. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to see if I can infuse some life in this ground, glue some seed to the ground, and I'm just going to see what happens with a little bit of water. This was the second site. We did 2 sites. So this was back in 2019, and so I thought, I'll mix the biology, the inoculant, in with the hydromulch, just lightly glue it on the ground. So I did on this site here, I used some cover crop. What I didn't realize was, and I put the perennial grasses in there too that I wanted, the native perennial grasses. I didn't realize it was going to take 4 tank loads of material to get this done. So I mixed everything into the first tank. So what you see here is a 4 times dose as compared to over here. It jumped it, got it going. This actually established, and today is still there. It gets grazed, the elk graze it. But we go back to the first example of where we filled the hole. This was last year, 3 years later. The owner came and said, I kind of like to have some sagebrush. I took the sagebrush off those bushes, threw it down there. It's still there. And we'll see some other pictures here too, where we talk about weeds and native grasses kind of keeping the weeds out. I also think that if we can get the system balanced, I think the soil itself will make if we had the right fungal bacteria ratio in there, that it'll inhibit a lot of weed growth. I've seen a lot of cases of that, but this is a pretty interesting one, and it's really right across the house from me. So if you look at this side versus this side, this has some crested, but it has pretty much all the annual annoying kind of weeds that no one wants. It's got the cheatgrass, it's got the pigweed, mustard. But if you look on this side where I seed it, inoculate it, and I was very careful to draw the line when I sprayed. I was doing this sort of as a trial. There's no weeds over here. They just are not creeping into that field that's been inoculated, and that's a long-term effect. That's been 4 years. Here's the side that I didn't treat. Here's the side that I did. And that's a pretty healthy system. I mean, I'm content with that. If Reclamation project could be like that on some of these bare grounds that have low precip, that wouldn't be too bad of a deal, I don't think. So I did some trials this summer trying to figure out how I could push some extremes and see what would grow. So this was on really hard packed dry ground that I just sprinkled some seed on, didn't harrow it. Then I took a shovel, threw some vermicast on, then I inoculated it with some compost extract and some food that we use to feed the fungi. The seed company told me that this stuff would germinate in 14 to 21 days. I watered it once. We had a wet year, so I mean, you can't. I was going to try to drought, see how little water I could use. Mother Nature didn't let that happen this year. Kept flooding us. 6 days, I'm out of the ground, well over an inch. 22 days, this is what it looks like. 80 days, it's fully established. So that was too easy. So then I thought, you know what? I'm going to wait till it gets hot, dry, and the rain shuts off. Well, that didn't happen either this year. So, but I did do some trials on some bare ground And I'd seeded these on July 9th. I'm thinking maybe the rain will shut off, so I gave them very little water. I didn't clear the ground. I didn't use any chemical. I just seeded it right into the weeds. And I did it on quite a few different sites as well. But if you look at these seeds here, they're in the 2-leaf stage, a couple inches tall. Over here in the control where I didn't treat it, they're just starting to poke out of the ground. So I did these. I don't have pictures. I didn't want to get a bunch of pictures because then I'd just get lost. But I did this where I seeded into weeds this tall that I just threw the seed on top of the weeds, sprayed it down with inoculant, washed the seed to the ground. It grew. What I noticed was where I didn't even bother spraying the weeds, underneath all the weeds, that's where the grass grew the best. It's like the weeds were a cover crop. Did I need to spray those weeds? You know, I'm going to find out next year because there's blue bunch in this mix. There's a pretty healthy seed mix here that I think would eventually take over and actually be able to battle the weeds by themselves, like in the example Matt used at that cemetery. You know, it's a research project that's still going on for me. But we work across the country in all different systems, from California to the East Coast to Texas. And unilaterally getting the soil better, we're seeing better germination, better water retention. I mean, I think, Laura, you had up all the benefits of healthy soil. What's cool is we're actually helping make the soil better, and I really enjoy doing that. And our trials with MSU, they proved a lot of that in replicate forms. This is anecdotal, but I think if you get enough anecdotal cases, it can make a pretty positive case. This is our website. If you guys have questions, we have a lot of case studies on here showing different situations we've done. We've worked on every single one of these cases. Yeah, I appreciate your time. Thank you.